you can choose to use the opportunities that are available to you to set yourself up for success in the future. And, on the officer side, it's a little more stringent because you come into it with a college degree, but there's still tuition assistance available for you to pursue higher education. So I would say to anyone who's contemplating joining the Marine Corps or is in the Marine Corps or any service really, if you're active duty and you're not working toward your degree, you're doing it wrong.
Welcome to another episode of the Military Bottom Line Podcast, where we help you make the most out of your military contract. Today on the show, I have Captain Talia Bastien, who is unconfirmed, but very likely to be one of the youngest female Marine Corps officers, starting OCS at the ripe old age of 20 years old. Significantly younger than her peers. She's been an overachiever, as she calls it, from the beginning, graduating high school early and thus graduating college early. She went on to do great things in the Marine Corps, including getting her master's degree completely paid for and strategizing how to time that with her exit. I hope you guys enjoy the show. I think you will learn a ton about ways to strategize an officer career, even if it's just for 6 years. If you guys continue to enjoy these shows, consider subscribing to the channel and following me at Military Bottom Line on Instagram for more. Hi, Talia. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
No,
I'm looking forward to hearing about your Marine Corps experience. I know you've been out for just hit the 1 year mark, which is significant yesterday. But you got a total of 6 years in?
6, yeah.
6 years. So I'd love to hear some backstory, kind of how you grew up and what your entrance into the Marine Corps looked like.
How much time do you have?
Well, whatever you need to say, you can lay it out there.
No, so background is pretty straightforward. So I'm from Long Beach area in California, oldest of 4. I was homeschooled for the majority of my growing up. And actually, because I was homeschooled, I was able to graduate from high school early. And I kind of had like everything mapped out. So by the time I got to college, I already knew what my major was going to be, and I was pretty young. I was 19 when I graduated from college. And I remember sitting on the floor of my bedroom, like churning out one of my last papers. And it just kind of dawned on me like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do when I graduate? And,
at 19, which is like barely older than people that graduate high school. Yeah, that's wild.
Overachiever. It's a problem. But I was Googling like what it takes to be a Marine Corps officer, and that seed had kind of been planted in me like years prior. Growing up, like I'd always been really active. I'd played sports. I was a soccer player, I was a swimmer, I did track. And I remember saying to my mom when I was like 13 years old, I was like, I wonder if I could do Marine boot camp, like just to see if I could do it. And so I was sitting on the floor of my bedroom writing that paper, and that thought came back to me. And so I kind of just started doing like Google searches, like Marine Corps officer. And I watched this like hour documentary on OCS, and I was so pumped. And I knew I wanted to go the officer route because I was graduating with my degree. And at the time, like I didn't know what I was Googling. And so I saw videos about like being a combat journalist. And then I was like integrating that with the Marine Corps. And anyway, I was convinced that I was going to be like a combat journalist for the Marine Corps, and I was going to be like a public affairs officer. And I didn't even know what the lingo was, but I saw some videos and I was very motivated. And I remember like going downstairs, my mom was making dinner, and I remember specifically she was chopping tomatoes. And I was like, so I figured out what I'm going to do when I graduate. She's like, yeah, what's that? I said, oh, I'm going to like join the Marine Corps and become an officer. And she's literally stopped chopping. She looked at me like, no, you're not. And then I did. So I graduated. We were on like a weird trimester system. I graduated in February, turned 20 in March, because I couldn't volunteer, or I couldn't go to an OSA's office before I was 20. So literally turned 20, and then like marched into my local OSA's office. I was like, I want to join the Marine Corps. And then in September that same year, I was at OCS. So it was very, very fast.
Wow. So OCS as a 20-year-old.
Yes.
Is it safe to say that you were the youngest in your class?
Oh, for sure. For
Okay.
sure.
I would
The
think.
youngest in several classes. Like I tried actually Googling this one time, like youngest female officer in the Marine Corps. I couldn't find anything.
Okay.
So I'm not
You could
saying,
hold the title. I
yes,
mean,
yeah, I'm not saying I was the youngest. I'm sure I'm
yeah,
not, but
that's
it's
pretty cool.
daydream.
It's a title worth having.
Well, it's funny because later at TBS, my nickname was Baby Bastion. So
Okay.
everyone and their mother called me Baby Bastion for 6 months. It was pretty funny.
So you couldn't hide your age for very long.
No, well, I couldn't drink, so.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That would do it. That would do it. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. So September you went to OCS, and what's the pipeline look for an officer? How long does it take?
So, I actually got in pretty fast. I think, obviously as a woman, they're recruiting for diversity. My OSO also fudged my ethnicity a little bit and put me down as Latina when I'm half Italian.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So according to the Marine Corps, I was a minority and I was a female, and they kind of pushed me through the cycle. I know if you're
Too funny.
Caucasian or if you're a dude, it can take a long time. But
Huh.
I was fortunate and I went through pretty fast. And yeah, I was at OCS for 10 weeks, and it was September 22nd, 2013 to November. I remember we graduated like 2 days before Thanksgiving or something like that. And it was so cold. It was my first time being back east. And I just remember being like so nervous, not so much for like the yelling, because I'm from an Italian family. We yell at each other all the time.
Sure.
Uh, so literally, like the yelling didn't
Less
phase
love in
me.
this way, though, you know?
Well, it's funny because after I graduated, the sergeant instructor, she literally told me that they would have conversations about how their yelling like didn't bother me.
Huh.
And so I had to explain to them like I'm from an Italian family. Like we yell at each other for everything, the
Yeah,
good, the bad, the ugly, like,
sure.
it's fine. But I was nervous about the physical stuff because as
Mhm.
a woman, the washout rate for OCS is about 60%.
Really?
And it was about that, well, 50% or so.
Hmm.
So we started with 60 female candidates and we graduated 29.
Oh, goodness.
So there's a big washout rate. And
What is it? I mean, is it a specific, element of the physical fitness kind of, or what is it usually that
um,
gets them?
a lot of stress fractures
Hmm.
in the shins,
Okay,
and then stress fractures in the hips as well from hiking and carrying
gotcha.
bags. Like female anatomy is not really meant to carry a lot of weight on your
Yeah,
hips. Um, and I remember even when I was going through, like I had horrible shin splints while I was training, like leading up to it. And it was so bad. Like I remember having to be on crutches, like just prior to going. So
wow.
I hid that from my OSO.
Just
It,
prior to starting OCS, you were on crutches?
yeah,
That's pretty brutal.
it was. And it was excruciatingly painful. I found out later that I actually have exertional compartment syndrome in my left leg,
Hmm.
which for people who don't know, it essentially, if you think of your muscle like a sausage, the casing that encompasses it is called the fascia. And when it doesn't expand with your muscle, it chokes it and causes like a buildup of blood pressure. So
Interesting.
yeah, so it's painful. I found out after I graduated that I had that, but at the time I thought I was getting stress fractures. So I was really nervous about the physical aspects of
Hmm.
OCS. But I made it. So
Congratulations. There you go. And now you are here.
now
So,
I'm here. Oh, but I forgot the best part, which is when you and I first met with everyone else from California,
yeah.
and we are at that Christian music festival for like, what was it, a weekend or a full
Yeah, I'm
week?
trying to remember what it was called. Spirit West Coast or something like that, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I remember I remember we had to like all introduce ourselves that night, and like you and a bunch of the other dudes who I don't even remember half their names now. But like you were all talking about being stationed at Pendleton and everything, and then like I saunter up and I'm like, "Hi, my name is Talia, and I'm gonna join the Marine Corps and be an officer." And like the look on your guys' face was, I'll never forget it for as long as I live. It was like, okay.
Yeah.
But
We were young back then, and we had a lot of ego and pretty critical. So,
that's my ego. What? Huh?
yeah.
No, good.
But you proved us all wrong.
You guys kept me motivated. I thought about that moment like so many times at OCS.
Hmm.
Like, I'm not gonna fail. I'm not gonna go home and have to look those guys in the face, because you guys were really supportive. Like I remember, like you would text me, Cody, Ethan, Adam. Like you guys would
Yeah.
text me when I was on Liberty and be like, "You got this. You're gonna do great." So I was like, I am not gonna go home and watch out and have to look at them in the eye and know that I failed. So
Right. Yeah, that's shame is a powerful motivator.
that and peer pressure.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
yeah, it was.
So what you end up doing as your job as an officer?
So I was an adjutant, or manpower officer as they call it now. They actually changed our MOS like a few weeks after I graduated from the basic school.
Hmm.
So we were 0180s, and then they changed us to 0102s. So adjutant is typically a billet. It's also like not the personnel officer, but you perform a lot of drill and ceremonies and things like that. You're also the legal officer. Usually, you basically take care of all of the administrative elements of a battalion. So I was the manpower officer. I was in charge of making sure that all of our tables of organization were up to date, and all the legal issues that we encountered at the unit. I processed all that paperwork and was kind of like the liaison between the judge advocates and then the commander. As I progressed in rank, I kind of started advising the CO on legal matters and what I thought he should do with certain cases.
So when you say legal matters, are you talking about like the Marine Corps being in legal trouble or like individual Marines getting in legal trouble?
Individual Marines.
Okay. All right.
So believe it or not, as honorable as most Marines are, there were a few bad apples, like there are
Sure.
in every industry. So we had a few pop on a variety of drugs.
Hmm.
So coke, spice, weed, which is illegal in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
We have cases of infidelity, or which is still processed under the UCMJ.
Yeah.
So just a variety of misconduct, people who weren't meeting physical fitness standards
Hmm.
that would have to be processed out. So yeah, all of those things.
Hmm. Okay. So I feel like I'm trying to remember my adjutants. I feel like most of them, maybe it's 50-50, are women. Um,
Yeah.
is is
So
that normal?
I think that as far as Marine Corps jobs go, there are more female adjutants.
Okay.
Just because like you're until recently, you're not going to see too many females in the combat arms. So
Sure.
most female officers are, comstrat officers, or, formerly public affairs, or they're intel officers, or they're adjutants, something that doesn't require you to lift very heavy things. So,
Gotcha. Okay.
um, and prior to that, like the combat arms MOSs were closed off to women until
Yeah.
about 2 years ago or so.
Yeah. So I'm curious then, starting your career very young and as a woman, like
Yes.
comparing and contrasting how moving forward those two things in the Marine Corps, I guess, like, do you feel like either or one or the other had an either positive or negative impact on how things went for you?
Um, I can I can definitely think of a few positive and negative aspects of being that young and a woman. So obviously being homeschooled, I was not I was prepared for a lot of things. I'm an old soul. I think I was born 30, so I'm pushing like 60 something at this point.
Uh-huh.
And then the Marine Corps ages you in dog years. So actually I take that back. I'm pushing like 90.
Yeah.
But I was born an old soul. So I was very prepared and like mature and able to take care of myself,
Hmm.
and extremely perceptive of other people. What I was not prepared for were the sexual politics of being a woman in a man's world.
Interesting.
I literally had no concept of that. Never dated, uh, never really dealt with dudes before. Like I had two brothers, but it was not even, I was not prepared. We'll just put
Yeah. I mean,
it.
I can't imagine. I think that only people that have been in the military or the Marine Corps more specifically could really understand like what the culture can be like. It's painted in a very nice picture, but yeah, it could be pretty crude.
It's pretty
Uh,
ugly.
yeah. And so
And,
going from homeschool,
yeah.
online college kind of thing, like
Mhm.
straight into the Marine Corps, like that's a stark contrast.
Yeah, it was. I wasn't prepared for the dudes banging on my door when they were
Hmm.
drunk. Like I wasn't like those that was like a soft initiation. And it kind of escalated from there. And eventually I got very good at shutting things down or at least giving back those like zippy zingers, or
Standing up for yourself,
yeah,
you mean?
standing up for
Yeah.
myself and like just zinging back, in a way that was humorous but also got my point across.
Hmm.
So I'd say that like being young, I definitely gained a level of confidence that I wouldn't have had because no one's going to listen to a 20-year-old, especially as an officer. You're put
Yeah.
in charge of people who are significantly older than you.
Hmm.
Um, and they're supposed to listen to you. So how do you garner that kind of respect from somebody who knows that like 2 seconds ago you were in high school?
Yeah.
you know, it's like someone who's like super short looking up at someone who's super tall and being like, listen to me, I mean it. So
Hmm.
you kind of have to fake it until you make it. And not in like a pompous way, because you
Okay.
have to have humility, but there were so many times I remember standing up in front of my Marines or standing up in front of a room of people and literally just telling myself, like, you're an actress, pretend like you got your shit together.
Yeah.
And so you learn to like control the tremor in your voice
Hmm.
and, project confidence and bearing, as we call it in the Marine Corps. And to deliver, like, what you're talking about. So that was a huge learning experience for me. And then also what it's like 9 times out of 10 to be the only woman in the room
Mm.
and make sure that you're assertive and you communicate, and you make your voice heard because it's not natural to raise your voice. At least for me, it's not. I feel like for most women, it's not, unless you're just born with a super dominant personality. When there's a bunch of people talking over you, talking louder than you, repeating things that you just said that were
Yeah.
not acknowledged,
Yeah.
you kind of get really good at, in a tactful way, being like, excuse me, what I said was blah, 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 and making sure that people hear you.
Mm.
So that was a learning experience, and that prepared me really well for transitioning out. And now I kind of feel like I'm a little too domineering at times. So it's like, okay, tone it back. Um, but I feel like it's always good to be over prepared than under prepared,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
um, especially depending on what career field you get into post Marine Corps. So
Hmm.
in that respect, I feel like it prepared me really well. Negative things, I mean, yeah, there was definitely a little bit of like good Christian girl gone wild. I had my definitely had my moments. I had my fun. But I also met some really great people. I
Yeah.
also met some really awful people.
Hmm.
You meet the best and the worst of humanity. You really
Yeah.
do. And I don't think there's any way to sugarcoat that.
That's fair. That's
So
fair. Huh. So over the 6 years, I mean, I kind of want to focus a little bit on like, you had your struggles, but also what you got out of the Marine Corps that was like, you know, that made it,
positive.
yeah, that was positive, that made it worthwhile.
Yeah,
It's not like, I mean, from what I understand, it's not like you got dragged through the mud for 6 years kind of thing. You did get some good things out of it.
I
So,
did.
and, I kind of want to focus on some of the good and some of the, like the opportunities that maybe you didn't know about going in that you learned about that, like, hey, like, anybody coming in like know about this and maybe take advantage of it, kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Marine Corps did do a lot for me. And I'm very grateful for the things it did do. I think the Marine Corps is what you make of it. Your
Mm,
experience is what you make of it. And that can be said for anything in life. But, I know plenty of people who, especially enlisted Marines, they spend 4 years or 8 years or however long they're in, just, you know, partying it up, blowing their money on weekends. They don't make that much.
yeah,
And it's just kind of a series of really bad decisions, but they don't really know that it's a bad decision because in the Marine Corps, like, that's how you cope with stress. It's just you get blackout
bad
drunk on the
decisions.
weekend. Yeah, just bad
Yeah.
decisions, right? But it's almost lauded as like like a mark of passing or something.
Mm,
Like, you're not a real Marine until you do X, Y, and Z. And there's a laundry list that
yeah.
we are not going to get into because
Hmm.
it's not appropriate. But so it is what you make of it, and you can choose to do that, or you can choose to use the opportunities that are available to you to set yourself up for success in the future. And on the officer side, it's a little more stringent because you come into it with a college degree, but there's still tuition assistance available for you to pursue higher education. So I would say to anyone who's contemplating joining the Marine Corps or is in the Marine Corps or any service really, if you're active duty and you're not working towards your degree, you're doing it wrong.
Mm,
Because for enlisted Marines, that's free money. Like, it's free money for you to go to college. And that's an opportunity that most people don't get. As an officer, you are also afforded tuition assistance. You just have to pay it back with a service extension.
mm,
But it's still free money and it's still education that, can enhance your paycheck or, your experience, like getting out of the service. So
yeah.
I made sure to time my master's with career designation. So when you career des as an officer, you have a 2-year payback. And
What
so
does that mean exactly? Career designation.
sorry. So career designation is after, so you're a second lieutenant, and right around the time you're a first lieutenant, maybe getting looked at for captain, you're put up on a career designation board. And basically what the Marine Corps does is they look at your fitness evaluations, your fitness reports, and they basically say, does this person have the potential to be a great officer?
Hmm.
And the selection rate is really high. So, like, no one should flatter themselves that they got career des.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be a turd to like
Yeah.
get dropped. But if you have a DUI, if you've had like an adverse fit rep, maybe with today's Marine Corps, you just might get passed over, and you get a couple of opportunities. So the going rate is about
Yeah.
80%.
Really, if you want to stay in, you can stay in.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, especially at that rank. So you get looked at, does this person have potential to be a good officer going forward? If yes, great, you're offered career designation. You can choose yes or no. If you choose no, then you fulfill your contract and then you get out of the service. If you
Mm,
say yes, you have a 2-year service extension.
mm,
So once you're career desed, then you just compete, with your peers for retention the same way that anyone would. So, but assuming that you do well and you continue to promote, you can stay in the Marine Corps however long you want, right?
gotcha.
So I was looked at for career designation and I got it, I accepted, and I timed my acceptance with my master's. So I started tuition assistance right around that same time. And so I would owe 2 years once I was done with my degree. So I really was strategic um,
Nice.
in the way that I timed it so that I could get out at 6 years with my master's degree and having paid back what I owed the Marine Corps for tuition assistance as an officer. If you're enlisted, there is no payback.
Okay.
Huge
Right.
benefit. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're an enlisted Marine and you're not pursuing your degree, you are not taking advantage of what the Marine
Yeah.
Corps has to offer you.
Yeah.
Um, and even post service, like you have the GI Bill and all those benefits available as well.
I really like what you said about like you strategized with your career designation and your master's degree? Because I feel like a lot, like, because that's how I feel like, that's what I want to encourage people to do is strategy. And I think that so many people just assume like, oh, you're in the military, like you don't have choices, you just do what they say kind of thing. And there isn't room for strategy, but it's just not the case. And there's so many people
Yeah.
that
Well,
do successfully strategize these benefits in their timelines.
well, and there's so many people who are willing to share their knowledge and experience, and that's true
Hmm.
whether or not you're in the service or out of it. And I know that when you're a younger Marine, whether you're a younger enlisted Marine, you're pretty much told up to shut up and color for the majority of
Yeah,
those first couple of years. But even then, most of the time, like if you ask a question, an informed question, because yes, there are such things as stupid questions.
yeah.
um, do the research, but like if you ask someone that's senior ranking than you and you're genuine about it,
Hmm.
9 times out of 10 they're going to stop and talk to you. I always talk to my enlisted Marines about school. I had to sign off on all of their tuition assistance requests.
Sure.
So that was something that I always talked to them about when I had a new Marine coming on board. I feel like that's just good leadership.
Yeah.
You don't have to be an officer to show that. So whether you're an NCO or a staff NCO or an officer, or even if just like a fellow peer-to-peer conversation, like you should always be asking those questions and
Hmm.
encouraging your peers and your subordinates to be better versions of themselves.
Mm. How did you, as an officer, like how did you encourage that, and what kind of advice would you give to enlisted people that you see go in? Because I feel like so like when I would go back on my reserve time, and I don't think I noticed it as much when I was active duty, the amount of time people would just spend like twiddling on their phones
Yeah.
during like a lull in the workday, and nobody cares if you during that lull you do homework, and yet you're just gonna scroll through Facebook for hours.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like, man, the amount of time available even during work hours at times, like, yes, not for everybody, but it could be put to good use.
Well, it's again, it depends on the unit, it depends on the op tempo. Obviously, if you're about to go out the door or you're coming home, there's not going to be a lot of time. But even on
Sure.
deployment, like I know plenty of Marines who found time to do homework. And if we're talking like 1 or 2 classes at a time here, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
we're talking like something manageable. I mean, I was an officer, I volunteered part time, and then I did my master's, and I had plenty of time for a social life,
Hmm.
and I did it in 2 years, 2.5 years, something like that. So it's doable. And I would say that I had like like Marines across the spectrum who displayed like, um, a level of commitment. So I had one Marine, like literally all he did was school. And you know what? He's got his master's now. We were kind of in a competition with each other, like even back then. And he's got his master's now, and he's working for, I want to say like United Airlines or something like that. And
Cool.
he's moved up in the chain and he's doing very well for himself. And then I had another Marine, she was newly married and she was trying to get pregnant. And she was honestly like one of the best sergeants I ever had. And she would take classes 1 or 2 at a time. Now she's at the Citadel, and she just finished, I saw her Facebook post, she finished her semester with a 4.0, and she's
Great.
got 2 kids and is pregnant with another one. So
Wow.
don't let anyone ever tell you that they don't have time.
Mm,
People have time, they just make time for what's important to them.
definitely.
And I know a lot of officers who and staff and COs who don't take the time to like get to know the personal aspects of their Marines. But if that's who you are and that's your leadership style, I would encourage you to like re-examine that,
Yeah.
because you get these kids who come from all walks of life, all kinds of backgrounds, and somebody may not have told them that they have the potential to go to college.
Mm,
I had one kid from West Virginia in the boonies somewhere. He didn't think that he could go to school
yeah.
because no one in his family had ever gone to school, and he joined the Marine Corps because he's trying to get out of that environment. And it was great to have a conversation with him and be like, hey, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And now he's like flipping houses and doing real estate. And I think he got
Sweet.
his real estate license. So it doesn't have to be college necessarily. It can be a skill, and the GI Bill covers that. So, you don't have to be behind a desk if you're not inclined to be behind a desk. So
Yeah. I know it's like when I was going through the trying to figure out TA, and nobody that I worked with had used it, so I was just kind of like, throwing darts at a dartboard trying to figure out the logical next step, and I wasted a lot of time because I didn't know what I was doing. And it at the time it seemed kind of daunting, like not knowing what to do next. But I mean, you've done it, you're pretty familiar with it. Rough,
yeah.
I know it changes over time, but like rough idea of like the steps and the procedure to go through in order to take advantage of it. Like what did that look like for you?
So first of all, like I'd say don't feel bad because I still had to like find my way through the
Sure.
dark with that process as well. What I should have done is go to the education office on Quantico where I was stationed at the time, because they probably would have walked me through it very linearly,
Yeah.
like what to do, when to do it. And once I did get in contact with them, they were very helpful.
Mm.
Um, and so I would say to anybody who's like looking to start the TA process, like just drop by your education office. Like every Marine Corps base has one. They're usually funded through, I think it's MCCS.
Yeah.
But basically, you have to take a course. It's like a couple hours, and it's like College 101, which for me, having been to college, was a bit of a waste of time, but whatever,
Mm.
it's their process. And they basically like tell you what to expect. And then also, what was helpful, the different resources available. So you can take CLEP tests, or you can take what are they called? The DACAs, DCAs? I don't remember what they're called, but it's like a type of
Yeah.
funding. It's a type of test and a type of funding, but it basically lets you pass like college courses without taking the class. You just
I
have to
forgot about that.
stop it, right? I
Yeah.
forget what it's called. It starts with a D.
I know one is clap, but then there's a similar one. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's crazy. Like you could go read like astronomy for dummies and then take a test and
and pass
get the
and
credit.
get college credit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually what I did in high school. That's one of the reasons why I was able to graduate so
Hmm.
early, because I did 21 units worth of CLEP tests because I
Wow.
was in AP courses in high school. And so my parents and I were like, why am I going to take AP courses in high school just to take it again in general ed for college?
Yeah.
I just tested out of a bunch of those classes, and here I was 16, 17 years old, and I had 21 units worth of college credits under my belt. Now you
Unreal.
have to be careful because not every college accepts CLEP tests,
Yes.
or they only accept certain ones. So you have to do the research to know what college you're going to go to and
Sure.
see if they accept. The one that I chose, that I had picked out for forever, Thomas Edison State University, um, just a shameless plug there. They accept all 33 units, or
Nice.
they did when I was going through. So yeah, the education office was really great in providing all of those resources. And then they usually pair you with like an education officer or someone to kind of assist you through the process. But it's literally a form that you fill out. You have to apply to school and be accepted. So I got my master's through Liberty University, and I did my field of study in international affairs and public policy,
Oh.
with more of like an emphasis on Middle Eastern affairs.
Hmm.
Um, and I picked Liberty because honestly, they had a great grad program, and they're extremely military friendly
Yeah.
with their military office, and they reduced the price of grad school to match TA.
Yeah.
Not every university does that. Um,
I I mean, I did my undergrad at Liberty, and I swear if everybody that joined a 4-year contract like just started working towards a general degree at Liberty online, like they could be done by the time they finish their first contract, like
exactly.
easily, and I wish I knew that because it took me a little while still to figure it out, but
No, Liberty was a great school, but they have, there's a ton of schools. American University is a good
yeah.
one. There's, I can't remember right now, but there's a bunch of online
Hmm.
colleges, and especially with COVID, online school is kind of the way of the future now. I
Yeah.
did it before it was cool. Um, But yeah, I would just say contact your military education officer, talk to somebody, tell them like the field of study that you're looking into. 9 times out of 10, they'll probably be able to direct you to the school that you want to apply to.
Mm,
If you have to, take what's it called, the GED again, they'll pay for that. So there's opportunities, like if you weren't the best high school student, there's opportunities to like retake the GED, retake the ASVAB,
yeah,
all in the military's dime. If you're
yeah,
not taking advantage of that, you're doing something wrong.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And so, I mean, 6 years, you got your degree, 2 degrees. I mean, you were able to graduate undergrad debt free, and then you were able to get your master's degree, remain debt free. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I mean, like you've already done a solid career and maintained a debt free, living at 24 years old, and now you're off to what do you do now? Now, 1 year out.
Yeah, so
How has this all led to impacting and kind of setting you up for a strong civilian career?
well, to your point, so I don't say this to brag. I say it to show what's possible. My entire
Mm,
undergrad degree cost me less than $12,000.
that's freaking
Like
awesome.
it
Yeah,
it was amazing, but I didn't, and you don't really realize until you're financially independent what a blessing it is not to be saddled with student debt,
yeah,
not to go into relationships with student debt. Not that it can't be done, people do it
uh-huh.
all the time, but it's just like an added little stressor of like, I owe,
Yeah,
100, 200, 300 grand.
yeah.
Um, which I don't know how I'd be able to sleep at night, but everybody's different. But I would say that, I did work hard. I've always worked very hard in my life, and I busted my ass like to graduate early from high school, busted my ass to graduate early from college. And at the time, like a lot of my friends were going on great trips and
Hmm.
doing all these things. And I remember like complaining to my parents one time, being like, sometimes I just don't know why I'm doing this. Like, I feel like I'm so behind. Everybody's on these great trips and like,
Yeah.
doing all these fun things. And I'm like studying in my room, which was like a rare occasion because I put myself in my room. It's not like my, you know, locked me in there. That was all of my own volition. But I will say at 27 now,
Yeah.
I'm making more money with no debt than most of
Hmm.
my friends, if not all of my friends, unless they're doctors or lawyers. But I've done really well. And I work for a consulting company now, and I'm a contractor for the Marine Corps, supporting the records management program for the Marine Corps and kind of trying to modernize it
Hmm.
and bring it into the 21st century. Because, like with everything, the Marine Corps, really the DoD, maybe with the exception of the Air Force, is about 20 years behind corporate America.
Mm.
And they're still filing paper records and filing cabinets, and
Yeah.
the crusty old civilians who are working there, they can barely open their email, and
Hmm.
we're trying to be like, hey, that little thing, that little square thing that you carry in your pocket that can like send text to China,
Yeah.
like we should use the technology there to like make our lives a little easier.
Yeah.
We think about that.
Novel thought.
Yeah, so yeah, that's my job now. I work for a great team and a great company, and I get to work remotely, which is amazing and a huge blessing. But I would I would definitely say that like the decisions that I made in high school, college, even while I was in the Marine
Mm.
Corps, like set the foundation for me to be where I am now.
Sure.
Um, and I'm really proud of where I'm at now, both
That's awesome.
professionally and personally.
That's awesome. Yeah. Good for you. I like that like the decisions you made in high school and college that you're reaping the benefits now. And I can't remember where it's from, but somebody said that in life you're gonna work hard. You're either gonna work hard when you're young or when you're old. You're
Well,
like,
and I think it's really sad that, especially with, the millennial generation, like no one expects anything of people anymore.
yeah,
No one expects anything of millennials other than to be arrogant and do TikTok dances, or is that after? I don't know. But like, nobody has like these lofty ambitions for teenagers
sure.
anymore. And I really feel like if society came alongside teenagers, young adults, and was like, we expect more of you, we expect this standard of you, they'll rise to the occasion.
Mm.
But when the standard's down here, what incentive is there to be up here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
um at least that's what I've always encountered in my life, and I've
Yeah.
really appreciated the people who have held me accountable as I grew up.
Do you feel like the military or the Marine Corps, like, you'll just say the military, it would be good for, somebody who's maybe young, graduating high school, or even young, graduating college, not sure what they want to do? Like, would you recommend it?
Oh, that's a loaded question. For so many reasons. Look, the military has its purpose. And again, we're very fond of the phrase "bloom where you're planted." I think that if you join the Marine Corps or any military service and you do well, you work hard, and you take advantage of the resources that are available, you can definitely set yourself up for success leaps and bounds ahead of your peers. Because let's face it, there are perks to being military, especially if you happen to get injured, which I
Yeah.
did, and now I have healthcare coverage for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a pretty good disability check as well. I'm not saying that you should milk the system, but if you get hurt, which I did, there's
They compensate you.
there's
Yeah.
compensation and there's a safety net there.
Yeah.
Um, and there's other perks like the TSP that are really great too, and all of those financial opportunities. I think that as a woman, if I were to if a woman came to me, if a girl came to me and was like, I want to join the Marine Corps, I would have like a little come to Jesus moment with her. Be like, honey, do you know what you're getting yourself into?
Yeah.
Because the military was great for me, but I had a lot of hard experiences.
Yeah.
And like I said, talking about how the Marine Corps is behind technology wise about 20 years, they're also socially and progressively behind in terms of how they treat women about 20 years. And so I would definitely say if you're a woman who wants to have a healthy relationship, don't join the Marine Corps. Not that it's impossible. I do know women who have met their spouses in the Marine Corps, and they're very happy. But I also know more people who have experienced like infidelity and,
Yeah.
um, it's not the most conducive environment for a healthy relationship. So
Sure.
if you're a woman who like wants to have kids, wants to settle down and get married, don't go that way. But I say that, take it with a grain of salt. It's a hard environment. It's a hard thing to be a woman in a man's world. And speaking candidly, it's hard to be an attractive woman in a man's world. And you will, like, there's a lot that you will have to put up with, encounter, learn how to fend for yourself, kind of a thing. It makes
Sure.
you stronger, but it's definitely a trial by fire.
Yeah.
Um, that aside, like I said, I don't regret my experience. It definitely made me a much stronger person,
Hmm.
more confident person. Believe it or not, I was actually like pretty shy growing up. So I've learned to come out of my shell and to like let my
Yeah.
voice be heard. And I definitely learned I learned how capable I am
Mm.
physically, mentally, emotionally, because you don't really get to see those parts of yourself until you're stretched to your very limit, right?
Sure.
Um, so I know what I'm capable of now, and that's reassuring going forward because I feel like there's nothing I can't handle, and who doesn't want to be able to say that?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's a complicated answer. It's not
It
really black
is.
and white.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely not a black and white answer, but that's okay. Life isn't necessarily. Some people say it's black and white. That's up to them. But no, I appreciate that. It was an honest answer, so that's what I'm looking for.
He's honest.
But cool. Well, I know that you've mentored a lot of Marines in the past, and I assume you're still in touch with a lot of them. But if
Yeah,
any, no,
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, the one thing I do miss, I miss my Marines. I don't miss my job in the Marine Corps. I don't even miss my leadership, but I do miss my Marines. Like,
Yeah.
damn, they made my life.
Yeah.
They made me laugh so hard. They made my job so much fun. I still keep in touch with a lot of them. Friends on Facebook with most of them, and it's just crazy to see like the growth and the maturity. You feel like the funny thing is being so young, we were practically like the ages that siblings are, but I was in charge, which felt very weird. But then you almost take on this like maternal instinct in a
Yeah.
way. They felt like my kids,
Yeah.
even though they were like a year younger than me, because I, again, was like mentally 90.
Right.
So yeah, I'm looking at my plaque that one of my, that they made for me at my last unit, and like one of my nicknames was like Mother of Dragons or the Mom of the Office, right? Like I don't know. It's just I do miss those antics and like the crazy things that they would say like
Yeah.
randomly out of the blue,
That's
no
funny.
context. Like it made life fun.
That's awesome. Well, for the bottom line, I guess here is like, I'm curious if you were your last day in the Marine Corps, you're an officer, you get a new enlisted person coming into your office, you get one day or like one moment to tell them, do this, like shaking them with the face, stay in school as long as you can, kind of thing. Except not that. What would you tell them?
uh, I would tell them go to school.
Mm,
That is important. Really take advantage. I mean, in all honesty, a high school diploma was to the 1950s what a bachelor's degree is to 2020.
yeah,
And I hate to say that because I think there's so many valuable skills that you can do without a college degree. Um, but whether it's a Bachelor of Arts or Science or a certification in a trade, do something. Take advantage of TA for something to better yourself. If you don't come out of the Marine Corps a better person and a better citizen than you did going in, like you failed. And the
yeah,
Marine Corps failed you too. Your leadership failed you.
yeah,
So that would be one thing. Two, I think it would be like be yourself, which is so hard to do in the Marine Corps because there's this persona of what being a Marine is that people kind of want to force on you. And
yeah,
it manifests itself in so many different ways, whether it's cockiness or, anger or just so many different ways. And be you, you
yeah,
know, like be the leader that is best for you, like adopt the leadership style that is best for you.
mm,
I had so many people tell me at OCS and TBS, you know, you're not tough enough, or, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. And I kind of just knew, like, in my gut that they were wrong. And sure enough, like, I went on to be successful and some of them went on to fail. And, not to say that I didn't fail at different times in my career, but you have to march to the beat of your own drum, or it
yeah,
comes off as inauthentic, disingenuous to everyone around you. So be yourself and don't feel like you have to put up a front or put on a mask to go to work every day, because if you make friends with a mask on, like, they don't really know you.
yeah, yeah. Be a
Um,
long 4 years if you're pretending.
Yeah, and I feel like people pretend for so long that they get out after a lifetime in the Marine Corps and they don't know
Hmm.
who they are anymore.
Yeah,
And I've seen a lot of people have like an identity crisis. You are not the Marine Corps. Like, being a Marine is part of you. It's part of who you are, but it's a job. It's a lifestyle, but it's a job at
yeah,
the end of the day.
yeah,
Like, I was very, very careful to always identify myself as I'm a woman, I'm a Christian, and then I'm a Marine. Like,
mm,
I have a lot of titles in my life.
yeah,
Marine is just one of them. I am not a Marine. Like, I don't
yeah.
introduce myself as Captain Bastion. Like, that was always really weird to me, unless you're in a
Yeah,
professional setting. But like, meeting people, I can't tell you how many times be like, I'm Captain so and so, or I'm Major so and so, or I'm
yeah, it's
Lieutenant
weird.
so and so. I'm
Yeah,
like, but you're a person.
yeah,
So be a person.
Yeah, nobody likes those kind of people that do that.
No,
Let's be honest.
like,
Nobody likes them.
no, but again, I feel like it's a front.
Yeah.
Like, who are you without the mask? Who are you without the Marine Corps?
Mm,
If you don't know the answer to that question, you're doing it wrong.
yeah.
So don't change yourself to fit the Marine Corps mold. And then probably the third thing is just be a good dude
Mm.
or
Or
dude.
gal. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Like, yeah, be a good buddy, be a
Yeah.
good person, be a hard worker, but just be a good dude or dudette, like don't Blue Falcon your buddy, you know, like
Explain Blue Falcon real quick. Just
Blue,
that hasn't been
Blue
touched on.
Falcon is just basically like you throw someone under the bus, like you
Yeah.
just Blue Falcon them. I don't
Yeah.
remember the history of it. It's just, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when somebody doesn't show up to formation, they're at medical.
Hmm.
They didn't sleep through their alarm, right? Like, just being a good dude or dudette. Um, yeah. So those would probably be the three things that I'd try to shake into them.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you, Talia. I appreciate you sharing your wisdom and your experience. And I hope that a lot of people will get good information and, will heed your advice as they move forward.
I hope so too. I mean, they'll figure it out one way or the other.
It is true.
Let it be 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Talia. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Military Bottom Line podcast today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show and continue to get a lot out of it. If you guys haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you were to subscribe to the channel, subscribe wherever you're listening to podcasts, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Google. There's numerous places to find this podcast. But I would really appreciate it if you went and actually left a review. Wherever you're listening, there should be opportunity to leave a review, especially on Apple. That would be tremendously helpful. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thanks.